There's a few things that I notice new coaches sometimes have trouble with. One of them is what we call saying and showing. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to show it. But the real skill is to be able to talk about it while you're showing it. Can I, as the coach, hit those 3 ground strokes in the baseline, hit that drop, come to the net, and meanwhile the whole time be narrating? Because that's how players understand what it is in particular that they should be watching for. Not too long ago, I ran a pickleball instructor certification course for Pickleball Coaching International. But what was different about this is, unlike our usual courses, which are all done online, or at least all the training is online, this one was different. We were in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and this is a PCI in-person instructor certification course. And it was great. All the people involved were so enthusiastic. They worked hard. They spent their time, they spent their money, they spent their effort to go through PCI's instructor certification program. And one of the things I noticed, well, there's a few things I noticed I want to share with you today about some of the areas that people struggle. And this wasn't just these particular people. These people were great, but I spent a lot of time working with pickleball coaches, and there's a few things that I notice new coaches sometimes have trouble with. So one of them, the first one, is what we call saying and showing. Let's say you're trying to demonstrate something. Let's say you're trying to demonstrate a drill that you want your players to do. Or let's say you're trying to demonstrate a technical skill. I don't know, the impact point you should have when hitting a ground stroke from the baseline. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to show it. But the real skill comes, the really difficult thing that's so important is to be able to talk about it while you're showing it, to be able to hit balls. For example, let's say I'm demonstrating a drill where I'm going to hit 3 ground strokes in the baseline, and then I'm going to play a drop and I'm going to come toward the net. Can I, as the coach, hit those 3 ground strokes in the baseline, hit that drop that's good enough, come to the net, and meanwhile the whole time be narrating? Because it's really important. That's kind of the job when you're demonstrating a drill or a skill is you're showing it, but you're also narrating through it because that's how players understand what it is in particular that they should be watching for. So that is a skill I've noticed that sometimes really strong players are really great at hitting the ball, but then have trouble talking about the hitting that they're doing at the same time. Or then they start talking about it, and then their hitting sort of declines. So that was something that has kind of been a common theme, is being able to say and show at the same time. It is not easy. Okay, what else do we have here? New terminology. So one of the amazing things about pickleball, at least as far as I'm concerned, is that we're still kind of in this wild west where there's not even agreed upon terminology across all segments of the sport. And so at PCI, of course, we have certain terminology. I just talked about the impact point, or we might talk about the sensation you have when you're hitting the ball. Things like flicks or rolls or dinks or drops, or now there's the drip, which is sort of like a hybrid shot between a drop and a drive. There's all this new terminology coming on board, which I think is really cool. But I also think it can make it challenging for instructors, especially newer instructors, who may not be familiar with the terminology, or wherever they play or who they play with or the coaching they do themselves. They might use one term for something, but if you're going through a certification program, you're being asked to use a different term. So that's something I noticed that people sometimes struggled with, is getting comfortable with terminology. The third thing, and this is not going to be a surprise to many of you, is that it's often tough for coaches to play in and to see what's going on the court at the same time. Never mind also give feedback. So here's an example, and this is something we do in the PCI instructor certification course, especially when we do the in-person, is like, hey, what do you do if you have an odd number of people? Let's say you're typically teaching a 4-person lesson. You know what? Someone's sick. Someone didn't show up. Now you got 3. What do you do? Well, one option could be that you take yourself out and that you run the activity as a triangle where the 3 people sort of work together, maybe alternating hits. And there's some advantages to that for sure, right? The coach doesn't have to do any hitting. The coach can just stand back and give that feedback. But there's a disadvantage to that as well. The players are going to hit fewer balls compared to if there were 4 people and you had 2 balls going at once, right? When you've got that triangle happening, if you and I and my friend over here are doing the drill together, well, when you hit the ball to my friend, I'm waiting, right? I'm not hitting the ball. Or when you hit the ball to me, my friend is waiting. They're not hitting the ball. Whereas if we each had a partner and we had 2 balls going at once, we're going to get a lot more reps, a lot more touches. and reps and touches are an important part to getting better. So one of the things that's ideal is in those situations where there are three people is that the coach can play in. The coach can act as a player. But one of the things that's important is that even though the coach is playing in, they aren't a player. They're still the coach. I should be able to walk by a lesson that's going on, even if there's three people doing the drill plus a coach, and I should be able to tell right away who the instructor is because I can hear the feedback that they're giving. I can hear the way they're using names. I can see them scanning, looking left and right and up ahead, right? Everyone deserves the feedback and attention from the coach, even if they're playing in. And that's tough to do. You have to be quite a strong player to both do a drill, do it correctly, look like the coach, and still give that love and attention and feedback to all your players. And that's something that's really challenging for newer coaches. And this is why, we hear all the time, you don't have to be a great player to be a great coach. But it sure as heck helps. Because if I can do that drill with very little effort, very little mental attention going to it, that means I can give lots of effort and lots of mental attention to my players. But if I'm struggling to do the drill, if I've got to really concentrate, then all of a sudden I'm going to be a less effective instructor. Anyway, so those are my three observations. We are really excited that we're now doing more PCI in-person courses. We're doing them all over the place, both in the United States and around the world. It's a really exciting time. PCI online, of course, for instructor certification, but in person is really fun too. I love it. It's way more fun than sitting at my desk all day. All right. Welcome to Pickleball Coaches Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Renneson, and we are going to be back right after this.
Hey, have you heard of the new Play More app?
No, what is it?
Basically, the Play More app is like a stress-free scheduling app for pickleballers. So I don't know, we've struggled a lot in group text trying to organize play. You'll set it up and somebody will just like the text. And I'm like, does that actually mean you're coming or not?
Yeah, and it's like, you never know how many people you have, what rating they are. It's kind of annoying.
It can kind of just be a nightmare to try to organize groups because group texts are just not fun. So basically the Play More app lets you send out invitations. You get an RSVP list. If somebody doesn't show, there's a wait list that will actually put somebody right into.
No way.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Dang, that's awesome. What's it called?
It's called the Play More app. So you should download it at the App Store, or you can go to getplaymore.com if you want to look at it online.
Welcome back to Pickleball Coaches Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Renneson. Today, we are answering a whole bunch of questions that came in from you. So let's get right to it. Our first question comes from Samantha Stevenson. Samantha Stevenson says, hey, Mark, can you recommend some great drills at different skill levels? 2.0, 2.5, 3.0, 3.5, etc., etc., etc. Sam, may I call you Sam? I get these kinds of questions all the time. Hey, what kind of drills? And we can send them to our premium lesson plans that you can buy. But honestly, Sam, the real answer is drills. There aren't no such things as good drills for different levels of player, or typically not. What you can do is you can take any simple drill and you can make it easier or harder by knowing where to tap. For example, you could just change the targets. Let's say we're doing ground strokes to volleys. You're at the net, I'm at the baseline. We could do that drill together, and we're just trying to keep the ball going back and forth. That could be like a 2-5 level drill. Now we say, okay, well, let's add some quality here. So Sam, you've got a volleyed deep, maybe to 3/4 court. Okay, so that's now increased the challenge. Ooh, Mark, you got to keep the ball low, below Sam's shoulders, right? So they can't hit down on the ball. That's increased the challenge. Oh, hey, let's add some scoring here where it's +1 if you hit the target, -1 if you miss. That's increasing the challenge. Hey, let's speed it up all of a sudden. Same drill, just make it faster. Let's add some movement. Let's add some variety or some pressure. Ooh, got to do a push-up if you miss. So I think it's important for coaches to think less about what's the appropriate drill for different skill levels and more about how can I tweak, how can I just adjust the difficulty or the movement or the speed or the pressure that players feel, even the target. So that way you can have multiple players of different skill levels all doing the same drill, just tweak to make it appropriate for their level. Next question comes from Randy Caputo, who says, is it okay for people to record pickleball lessons? Randy, this is a good question. I've come across this quite a lot. I'm assuming when you're talking about people, you're not talking about sort of a bystander out there, but you're talking about someone in the lesson. Here's my take on it. I think if it's a private lesson, it's much more acceptable in a private lesson than in a group setting. I think before I said yes to this to someone, I'd say, well, what are you planning on doing with this? And if they say, oh, I'm going to publish it, I'm going to share it with all my friends, I'd probably be reluctant. The time I spend on someone with a court can be like kind of intimate's not the right word, but it's personal, right? And So if they were going to publish this, I would definitely think twice about it for me personally. If they said, oh, I just want to review because sometimes I forget things and I want to go back over it, it's for my own personal use, I'd say, yeah, no problem. Group setting is different though, because you've got other people involved, right? And even if you're saying, oh, it's just for my private use, there's lots of people who don't want to be on anyone's camera, even for their private use. So I'd say in a group lesson, probably not. Private lesson, for me, yeah, okay, depending on how it's being used. If you as the coach ever want to do any recording, just make sure that you in advance let all your players know that this is what you intend. You can get them to sign a little waiver saying that's no problem, but you don't want to spring it on them at the last second. So there you go, Randy. Samir Abdullah says, hey, Mark, I hear that PCI is now offering in-person coaching certification. What is it that you learn? Okay, so it's true, as we said at the top of the show, the Pickleball Coaching International Instructor Certification Program is typically online. That used to be where all the training is. And we still do that. You can find it all at pcipickleball.com. But we've started to do in-person because people want that. There's a hunger to be on the court. And to be honest, it's way more fun for me. So what are some of the things that we learned when we do the in-person instructor certification course? Well, one, communication. Coaches have to be great communicators. You just do. Whether you're private lessons or group lessons, you got to be able to communicate. Two, you got to be able to create an environment where people are excited to learn. No one wants to go to a boring pickleball lesson. So how do we create that kind of environment where everyone's pumped to be there? What else do we learn about? We learn about technical skills, various technical fundamentals, and how to demonstrate them effectively. How do you make sure that you're clear in how you're showing a technical skill, how you talk about it, how you demonstrate it. Same thing goes for the activities, the drills you might use to work on those. Got to be able to demonstrate those effectively. We got to be able to problem solve, right? When a player's struggling with something, how do you help them? How do you help them get better? We've got to be able to what else do we have to do? We've got to be able to manage groups whether you have comfortable numbers or awkward numbers. So the PCI Instructor Certification Program, the in-person, it's like a full day long plus some online work in advance. We think it's really fun. It's hard work, but I think it's fun kind of hard work. So check it out. You can learn more at pcipickleball.com. All right, our final question of the day, Cody Barbosa says, hey, how do I make sure that my players are intrinsically motivated? Now, what Cody means by this is, how do we make sure that players are motivated by themselves to do something instead of an external motivation? So how do I make sure that, I'm working on defending against bangers, not because my coach tells me I have to, but because I feel like it's really important. I really want to do the work. I think the important thing here, Cody, and all coaches, is that your players understand the why. Why does it matter that we're learning this? How does it help us improve? There's such a difference between when a coach says, so everyone, today we're going to work on defending against fastballs. Here's how the drill works, or here's how the skill works, versus a coach who says, hey, have you ever been in a situation where people come and they just bang away? Maybe they're tennis players, maybe they just love to hit hard. Wouldn't it be nice if you could defend against that so well that they stop banging? Wouldn't it be great that their best strategy didn't work anymore? Imagine how good you'd feel, right? That's a different way to introduce the topic. And by telling that story, by connecting it to feelings, players can be way more excited to learn whatever it is that they're about to learn. So that's my suggestion to you, Cody, is that try to tell a story that kind of encapsulates why the skill is so important. And if your players really buy into it, if you're a good storyteller, if they understand the why, they're far more likely to be motivated themselves to work on this skill rather than just doing it because the coach is telling them to. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Pickleball Coaches Podcast. I'd love to know what you think about the show. Why not send me an email, info@pickleballcoachinginternational.com. Of course, you can check out this podcast and all sorts of other great pickleball content on the Selkirk TV app. If you don't have it yet, you should definitely get it. It's got all things pickleball. I love the Selkirk TV app, not just because I'm on it a little bit, but I love watching the other coaches out there, the players. I learned so much from it. You will too. Selkirk TV, get the app today. If you have more questions about what we're doing at Pickleball Coaching International, you can check us out, pcipickleball.com. We mentioned how we're doing more in-person instructor certification courses. If that sounds like your jam, check it out. The calendar is coming out, and we're going to have a whole bunch of places on the docket. Thanks for watching. I'd love to know what's going on in your life coaching-wise. Send me an email. Find us on social media, Pickleball Coaching International. Until next time, I'm Mark Renneson.